2347 Curse of Abundanki. Sunny played hide and search with the snow worm by jumping between shadows while the mountain was falling apart around them. The creature's huge size made it difficult for him to destroy its body, but it also made it difficult for the creature to destroy him. The pale, segmented coils of the snow worm were wrapped around the entire mountain countless times over, expanding and constricting as they moved at great speed and slowly ground the mountain to dust. Because of their sheer mass and number, the cursed beast was its own obstacle when hunting down an foe as mobile as Sunny. The snow worm twisted its coils unpredictably to catch and crush Sunny between them. When two walls of pale flesh collided, violent shockwaves sent ripples across the sea of clouds, and the entire world seemed to shake. At the same time, its maw was pursuing Sunny, easily digging tunnels through the mountain or soaring into the sky to plummet down seconds later like a ghastly meteor. These impacts were even more earth-shattering. Sunny was being attacked from all sides, from below, from above, and yet, despite the unfathomable might of the cursed beast, he remained mostly unscathed. He was simply too quick and elusive to be caught, moving from one spot to another almost instantly to evade the frightening blows. That was why pure might was useless unless it was supported by a keen mind, skill, or at least agility. The snow worm was undoubtedly a creature of distressing power, but without proper means to channel that power, all it could achieve was thrash wildly and slowly take the mountain apart in its furious, fruitless pursuit of the nimble adversary. Then again, as the battle continued, Sunny got the impression that pure, focused lethality was not exactly the snow worm's strong suit. Rather, it seemed like a creature who subjugated its prey through its sheer abundance. The snow worm was too enormous, too voluminous, too inexhaustible. Its infinite body allowed it to weather an infinite number of attacks, only for more pale flesh to burst forward, burying the adversary under its endless mass. So, it could simply endure endlessly, until the adversary was exhausted, tired, and spent. In this case, the snow worm simply needed to endure until nightfall. It was a single-minded and patient creature. And yet, it was exactly its single-mindedness that made the snow worm so frightening. Its extreme mastery of a single power, of a single concept, used both for attack and defense, made it almost inevitable. As the sovereign of death, Sunny took offense to that. After all, nothing was supposed to be more inevitable than death. If only my legion was here. Growling, he fled from the snow worm while shredding its flesh with his great blade. Sunny did not discriminate between attacking the body of the cursed beast and its shadow, dealing both physical and soul damage to it. The soul of the snow worm was as vast and seemingly endless as its flesh, hiding an infinite amount of vile darkness. When souls received a certain amount of damage, they collapsed and crumbled, except for Sunny's own tenacious soul, which was reinforced by soul weave and therefore had no such threshold. And yet, he felt that the soul of the snow worm was too enormous, too ancient, and too deep to be destroyed that way, at least while he was devoid of his shadows and weakened by the snow domain. Perhaps that was what the souls of all deities were like, or perhaps the soul of this corrupted deity in particular was especially abundant. In any case, destroying it was not something that could be accomplished easily. Fortunately, Sunny was nothing if not resourceful. Even if dealing a sufficient amount of soul damage was not feasible, he had other means of destroying a soul. After all, he wielded the power of shadows, the power of death. Just as Nephi's had mentioned, each will was unique, and his was all about killing intent. It was the will to see living beings die. That was both his natural affinity and a skill he had developed by wielding Serpent, the slaying blade. In other words, his will was more effective and efficient than it was supposed to be when implemented for the purpose of killing. And while the snow worm was a being of a higher rank than Sunny, its will was not as sophisticated as his. Sunny understood it as he was desperately fighting the detestable creature. Yes, the snow worm was more powerful than him, and its will was far more harrowing. However, just like a mindless beast could not fathom a combat technique, the colossal nightmare creature could not wield its will with focused intent either. The will of the snow worm was not much different from the elemental and largely directionless will of the millipede swarm. And so, Sunny actually had a clear advantage over the profane deity. Therefore, he could infuse each of his soul attacks with the power of death, with the focused will to see the adversary die, and that will slowly accumulated, poisoning the soul of the snow worm. The quantity of damage he dealt to the adversary's soul might not have been sufficient, but its insidious quality was a completely separate issue. Even if each cut dealt to the shadow of the cursed beast was insignificant due to how vast it was, all of that vastness was poisoned by the death will regardless of its nearly endless nature. As soon as Sunny expressed enough will to kill the snow worm to overcome its will to live, the creature was going to die. Which was not to say that he would be able to achieve that before the sun disappeared beyond the horizon. However, that was only half of Sunny's strategy. The other half was far simpler. He simply wanted to rip, shred, and devastate the snow worm's huge body. That, too, was a way to kill the enormous cursed beast. 2348 Death Will. Every cut Sunny dealt to the snow worm's voluminous body served a purpose, and that purpose was to allow more obsidian wasps to crawl inside it. By now, almost all of them had found their way into the cursed beast. They were slithering there, wreaking havoc and mangling tissue while burrowing deeper and deeper. Even if the wounds Sunny dealt to the huge nightmare creature were relatively insignificant, being mangled and devoured by 100 supreme shades from the inside was not. And yet, the snow worm endured the harrowing amount of damage being dealt to it almost effortlessly, demonstrating the vast divide between the supreme and the sacred, or rather, cursed, ranks. More than that, even buried deep within its flesh, the obsidian wasps were not entirely safe. In fact, numerous of them had already been destroyed. Some were simply crushed by the unfathomably powerful muscles of the cursed beast. Some had accidentally found their way into its digestive system and were either ground to dust or dissolved entirely. Some met their end in ways that Sunny could not even describe, let alone understand, while some were destroyed in more bizarre ways. Since the snow worm wielded the concept of infinity as its weapon and could expand or shrink its body at will, some obsidian wasps were simply torn asunder when the point in space they had occupied suddenly expanded. Others were crushed into infinitely small balls of obsidian when the space they had been occupying shrank. Of course, none of them were actually destroyed, rather, they were returned to the dark expanse of Sunny's soul. But they were eliminated from this fateful battle, which was ostensibly the same. Gods, just how indestructible is that thing? The mountain was full of holes by now, groaning precariously, which made it difficult for Sunny to find sure footing as he kept escaping the cursed beast's awful attacks. The snow worm showed no outward signs of being seriously harmed by the swarm of obsidian wasps, for now, which was not to say that it was unharmed. In fact, Sunny could sense the cadence of the battle slowly changing. He felt a bit of vicious joy as he realized that his preparations had not been for naught, and that his strategy was working. Just as he had planned, he was going to defeat this overwhelmingly powerful adversary by using his advantages, his intelligence, cunning, and skill. By then, Kai Slayer had sunk all of the finality arrows he had crafted into the worm's flesh. The enchantments Sunny had so laboriously created were locking various segments of its body in space, making it more difficult for the creature to exercise its infinite power. At the same time, the obsidian wasps were ravaging the snow worm's insides, while Sunny was poisoning its soul with the power of his deathly will. Kai Slayer, meanwhile, switched to purely annihilating arrows, helping him wound the cursed beast as much as they could. Their transcendent wills were added to his supreme killing intent, tipping the scales. As Sunny poisoned the soul of the snow worm more and more, suffocating the very spark that kept it alive, the creature weakened. The weaker it became, the less it could resist the binding power of enchantments constricting its power. And the more constricted its power was, the more physical harm the obsidian wasps could deal it. Which, in turn, made its life force weaken more. It was a virtuous cycle, a wicked cycle. It was a cycle that would bring this huge, mindless, corrupted deity to death. Come on, you scum, die faster. Sunny's shell, too, was slowly coming undone. Even if he managed to avoid being struck by the snow worm directly, the damage dealt to the Shadow Colossus through simply being in the epicenter of unimaginable destruction was mounting. Still, he persisted, because he could sense it. Slowly but surely, the enormous body of the snow worm was shrinking. Instead of infinitely growing, it was gradually reducing in size. He could not see the result due to the sheer scale of the snow worm, but he could sense it through the shadows. Already, there were fewer coils surrounding the mountain. And as the battle continued, the rate at which the snow worm was shrinking only accelerated. By the time Kai had run out of arrows, Sunny could already see its tail. The maw of the creature, too, had diminished in size. It could still swallow Sunny in one bite, but at least not without doing some chewing first. As he stepped through the shadows and rolled on the heavily damaged, perforated slope of the mountain, a new shadow suddenly joined the fray. What is this maniac doing? A haunting sound that resembled a song suddenly permeated the sky, and a sonic wave struck the head of the cursed beast, shredding some of its flesh and changing its direction slightly. A gorgeous dragon plummeted from above, landing on the cursed beast's back and striking at it with its long, sharp claws. At the same time, Kai seemed to have spoken something. The snow worm largely ignored his command, but not entirely. Sunny almost missed a graceful figure that shot an arrow into an open wound of the cursed beast from the dragon's back. Slayer wanted to kill the weakened deity, as well. The sun had already fallen halfway behind the horizon. We need to hurry. After that, the demise of the snow worm was hastened. The damage dealt to its soul and body had accumulated, and its ability to command infinity grew unstable. It shrank its body more and more, crushing the obsidian wasps within. But it was already too late. Soon enough, the cursed beast could barely wrap itself around the mountain. Then, its maw became too narrow to swallow the shadow colossus. That, ironically enough, made it more dangerous, since it could maneuver much better for a short while. So, Sunny abandoned his shell and continued the battle as a human. Before too long, the snow worm shrank to a truly pitiful size, no more than a kilometer from head to tail. Then, it became even smaller, similar in size to Soul Serpent. And then, finally, Sunny exhaled tiredly as he leaned on his odachi, looking down at a pale maggot that was wriggling in the mud. That tiny maggot was the formerly proud cursed beast. Sunny glanced at it darkly, his eyes hidden in the deep shadows of the falling dusk. How could something so great become so pathetic? Was that how the gods died? His tone was strangely forlorn. Maybe I'll learn before ending this game. With that, Sunny brought his foot down, crushing the tiny maggot under his armored boot. There was a second of silence, and then, he heard the familiar words. You have slain an adversary. Sunny sighed with relief as the last vestige of the sun disappeared from view. He had killed his first cursed one today.